Thanks, Rosie, and welcome everybody. I know there's people still streaming through, but good to see you all. Thank you for joining. I'm Will Sibley. I'm one of the account managers at LandApp, and I'll be the host of today's webinar. It's our 2025 year in review, and I'm joined here with Rosie, my colleague as well, who's going to be supporting technically and helping with the Q&A at the end. So in this session, we thought it's an opportune time of the year just to give a roundup and review, as well as a showcase of all the new and improved features in LandApp that we've introduced over the last 12 months. So we will do a nice roundup through a demo, and as this year comes to an end as well, hopefully this is a great way of you not only being aware of all these new changes, but as you're indoors more and wanting to create data and map in LandApp, you'll be much more aware of all those features that you have access to, and feel much more confident in doing so. We really enjoyed doing these webinars. They act as a great forum, if you like, for us to not only share these different things and what's new, but also for you to share your feedback. And we have quite a strong philosophy at LandApp to improve and adapt based on your feedback and your needs and challenges. So please do, towards the end, send in your comments and questions. It's what we really enjoy reading and interacting with. Great. So just to go through a bit of housekeeping, as usual, this is a webinar, so your camera and microphone will be turned off. But as mentioned, that doesn't mean to say we don't want to hear from you. And there's a Q&A function somewhere at the bottom of your screen, on the Zoom window, where you can pop in your questions and comments. And we've saved a good chunk at the end for that session. As always, we'll record this webinar too. We are recording, so that will be added to our YouTube channel in about 3 to 5 days, depending on how busy the marketing team are. And then lastly, there's also a feedback survey at the end of this webinar when it closes. We'd be really appreciative if you can fill that out at the end too, just so we know if it's all going well, if we can prove in any way. Right, in terms of the agenda then, so we've gone through the welcome housekeeping. I'll do a quick slide on LandApp's mission and just explain our tiers that we have at LandApp, with a free and then also some paid subscriptions. Our marketing survey. So as the year ends, we also always put out a survey to all users that they can fill in. It's quite a broad survey about how your experience is in LandApp and what we can improve again. So that would be sent out to you guys after this webinar, and then we'll get into the year review demo, which should last for about 20 minutes. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A session. Should finish at about 1 o'clock if all goes to plan. On this overview then, so just starting it out, what the values we're looking for you to achieve in using LandApp. We're about 8 years old now, and most of that has all been or originated from a farmer. Our executive is a farmer himself. And the idea is we're trying to create a platform where you achieve these values. You can connect and collaborate. So not only can you use LandApp at an organization level where your whole team, if you have one, are all in one account, all that data is consolidated, but also you can share maps with other users. And I'm aware there'll be farmers in the room, there will be advisors, there'll be land agents. You can share your maps really easily through LandApp, which of course helps streamline the sharing and creation of data, which is a good thing in this quite varied and hard to navigate sector that we're in. Consistent data, and that will be reflected certainly in the demo of what I'll share in the roundup around how most of the data that we've built into LandApp is from authoritative open source data. So that's key for you for understanding context, helping you make decisions, and in cases where you're applying for different funding opportunities. Simple, fast, and efficient. Lots of data, lots of different tasks and things going on. Building that all into one platform that's really easy to use is a key value that we're always trying to improve and achieve at LandApp for you as well. That should be reflected in the demo. And then lastly, demonstrating. So you can print, you can report through LandApp, And then obviously it's a key thing for the sector to be showing what good things they're doing on the ground. So hopefully you should all feel that when you're using Land App and also through the demo that I share. We are structured in a tiered system in Land App in terms of what you can use. So a free version, the majority of you probably being free, and the majority of the functions that you can use in Land App sit in that free tier. But there are also a standard and a professional tier two, where the functions really are up to notch in terms of the data you can interpret from that. And I will be throughout the demo just highlighting what sits in the free, standard, and professional tier throughout. On the marketing survey, I have mentioned that already. That will be going out via email after this webinar. Is really helping shape the future of Land App. So, what we really want you to think about when filling that out is what relates to you and are we doing it right? And if not, what can we incorporate and improve? There's various questions that lead you and prompt you to fill that in. So it'd be really appreciative if you can take 10 minutes to look through that when you get the link to it. Now, what's being covered today, before I get into the demo, just wanted to put these two sides of what I won't be covering, purely because I think I won't have time. If I try to cover everything, I'll make you quite dizzy, I imagine. But I've laid them out in these slides here. So on the right, quite a big thing, or sorry, on the left even, quite a big function for Land App this year has been our mobile app. So you can now map on Land App out in the field that uses GPS location. So you don't have to have signal at that point. It will follow you where you're going. And that syncs automatically once you do have signal with your desktop. So you could have a colleague who sat in the office looking at the map. You could be out in the field with signal, and they'd see your edits that you make through the mobile app. And then it's also a great tool to add things like photos, different points. If you're doing different surveys, it's a really great tool just to be out in the field. We've done a lot. We've done 2 webinars, I think, this year, and created a couple of walkthrough videos that are on our YouTube channel that you can look at. So that's the reason I won't be covering it here. If you want to trial that out, we are offering free trials of the Land App mobile. So all you need to do is just email sales at the Land App, and I think Rosie's just going to pop that email address and a couple of links about the mobile app in the chat for you to have a look at. But please do get involved with that. We're really excited about it. And then on the right, you can see what we'll be covering in 2026. So 3 new functions there. The ones in green are already in Land App. The one in yellow, the title deeds from HM Land Registry, is still in the works. But we intend early on in 2026 to be covering those in these kinds of demos. So that single sign-on security procedure, the integration with Re-Leased. So that's a quite exciting point for us. We're integrating with a new platform for the first time, which is a big signal of intent. And that particular one, Re-Leased, is around property management. So if you're a property manager and you're using that platform, you can now streamline and transfer data from either platforms really easily. So linking that property data with geospatial data and vice versa, which is really exciting. And then on the title deed, soon enough, you'll be able to purchase private title deeds from HN Land Registry from Land App. So that's just through a direct link. We won't be changing the price, which I think is about £7, used to be £4. And you'll have that PDF that you can usually buy from the HM Land Registry, which again, streamlining data, keeping it consistent, and it's a much easier way to do that for you all. So that's all exciting. I think that's a good segue into the demo. So I'll just jump on to Land App on my screen, which you should all see now. So really this demo I've broken down into the different components that you have in Land App. So that's the templates, that's the base maps, that's the data layers, and that's the different tools that you can use to create data and infer from it. So we'll be linking all of that in as well as new features. From the off, what you can see here is that I don't have a plan list on the left. So I'm using a big screen and I can see a really nice view. We've added this panel here that I can toggle on and off my plan list, which is great if you can see I'm using a big screen at the minute and I've just got that extra space, which is a quite nice one. Small, quick fix, but hopefully quite big impact in terms of how you're viewing things and what you see. So starting with those components, I'll touch on the base maps first. So these are really the way in which you get the detail that you want. It's the different background that you use whilst you're mapping, and they are providing detail on the ground with just going through all of them. We've got the default of OpenStreetMap, which you can see here. We've got our Ordnance Survey maps, of course, very good detail from Ordnance Survey that they provide. It's the best geospatial data of what you can see here. So I've got more detail in terms of where all the rivers are and the roads and different buildings. With this option that you see now, of being a more colourful version of it, but we've got this one here, Ordnance Survey Lite, which is a grayscale version basically, and I quite like this one just because you get quite nice contrast between your maps and also the background. Plus Ordnance Survey Leisure, so if you're a rambler like me, you'll notice these from the paper maps that you can carry around. Stadia Maps, which is the satellites option that is available for our free users. There's also a Stadia Maps with labels too, so you've got the names of different roads, as well as footpaths, I think is what they are, those dotted lines. And then also a blank version. OS free base map for FME, ignore that one. It's here because I'm in the development count today. But also Environment Agency LiDAR. So this is available to standard and professional users. We've got a live data sets from Environment Agency showing LiDAR, which is a great one, of course, if you're looking at where the different ebbs and flows are of these valleys, such as this one here, but also where the different hills and inclines and dips that you might get. So, of course, in a water context, it's a really good one to view. You can also see where these different foundations are of buildings as well. So what's new to these base maps? You'll notice we have this aerial imagery option here, excuse me, which is a build upon the satellite imagery, but this time it's actually drone taken images. So the result, you get a much clearer, close, crisp image of what the details are on the land. So we can see the focus there. I'm at 50 meters at the minute. But if I go right down to 10, that's still giving me a lovely crisp image of what's on the ground. And I know that there are definitely plenty of users that prefer this option just because they might be, say for that tennis court there, putting a feature around there and kind of tracing it on to the map. You can do so with a good level of detail and confidence. So this was added, I think, in spring this year. And the provider takes photos in 2-year cycles. So what you're seeing here should be photos from 2023 to 2024. Next year in 26, we'll get 25 and 26 photos. So that's a really good addition in terms of looking at that detail. And then secondly, we've got this Ordnance Survey historic 1900 map, which actually is not from Ordnance Survey. It's from another provider. But this here, of course, shows us a lot of insights in terms of what the land used to look like according to the people who created this back in 1900. So brilliant one if you want to really get into where the different field boundaries were laid out back then, looking at where woodlands were, perhaps so you can see here on Tim's farm, there was these blocks of woodland on what is now modified grassland. So this is Tim's pasture. And even things like ponds where rivers used to be. It's all quite fascinating looking through this, using this map, which is great and available again, like the aerial imagery, base map to standard and professional users. So if you're using the free, you won't be able to see this. What I like to do with this base map is turn on I'll just turn off that plan quickly. Using my panel. What I love to do is look at the land registry data layers on top of this. So switching that on, I've now got what it looks like today in terms of different boundaries and field parcels and titles from the land registry, and hovering that over this historic base map, you can just see where things have spread. Urban development, you can see wherever this is Godalming. It's really spread down this way, but you can also infer where these natural features still remain, what's changed. There's a really nice combination there of understanding quite a lot of different meaning and what's happened. So they're both new to the base maps in terms of enriching the detail that you can see on your map. Looking at this data layer is quite a nice segue, actually, into what I'm going to show you in terms of what data layers have been added. Just whilst we're on the land registry freehold, with this, if you don't know, you can view the ownership details of different titles if they're owned by a company currently. So if I click on any of these, let's see if we've got lucky and got one. Maybe not, but say if a council owned one of these titles, or the church, or any company, you'd be able to see those details on that right-hand panel there. And then also touching on those purchasing of private titles. We've got the button ready, we just haven't got the actual link ready yet. But that's how you do that soon enough in the future, by clicking that buy titles button there. Moving on to all new data layers that have been added. And so Michael and Ben, who are our data engineers, they're usually the ones putting all of these through, and they've worked pretty hard this year in terms of adding a whole range of different data layers. And I'll just show a selection of them to you now. Getting rid of that search bar. We've actually gone through. We've broken down the different data layers into these different categories, if you like. So you could search them like I did just there, or you could just toggle on any of these categories and you'll be able to view the different groups. I think starting with a new one that we've recently added is this planning applications data layer. So maybe not in Tim's farm, but if I head over to maybe Guildford, where there's probably a lot of planning applications. When I zoom in to here, just check if I've got it turned on, we'll notice that these points show up on my map. And these are different planning applications that are on the ground against these properties. So they'll be highlighted in different colors, these blues being approved planning applications. I see if we can find any yellows or reds. There's a red one that was refused. And yeah, there's a yellow one up there, which is pending. So clicking on any of those gives me a description of what that planning application was, but also a direct link to that planning application webpage from the planning authority. or the council. So that would look something like this. So here we've got a felled bay tree that was decided and approved. Great, in Guildford. So it's a nice connection, if you like, or direction to the exact details on the planning authority's webpage. What we have, so this is quite a new data layer. What we have discovered from early stages of different users feeding back is that there might be on these points several planning applications. You could have 20 on one property. So we flagged that, and our intention is soon enough, early in the next year, basically to have a list of all those planning applications that might be on a single point on this panel on the side here. So you'll be able to scroll and just click each one and see when it was made. So that's a great addition that we've added, and quite a big one. That's only available to professional users currently. I'll just head back to Norney. And then moving down on the different categories, we've added this new one of schemes. So this year, I think all of these, apart from the countryside stewardship management options and management areas, have been added. But these are all the different agri-environment schemes that are present on the land. These are DEFRA data sets. And not only can we see those countryside stewardship agreements where they're live, I believe Tim has, got one down there on that triple SI, but these are color coded between the yellows being higher tier and reds being mid tier. We've also excitingly brought in sustainable farming incentive too. And DEFRA have been brilliant in producing this, but I can also see where these different SFI options are live as well. That gives me a bit of detail in terms of, so I think these blues, SFI 23, and these greens are later or something else. So if you are looking for, you're working with farmers, you're a farmer yourself, and you're looking for the different schemes that are under already your planning applications, you can check through this too. This is giving me areas, but you'll notice this other data set, the actions too. I've got different points. I can click on those. I can see what codes for SFI have been added. So this one down here, we can see CLIG3 is live, which is a really insightful piece of data, those in conjunction. Also a bit older is the environmental stewardship schemes that have been added too. But on top of those kind of more well-known bread and butter agri-environment schemes, we've also added these BNG sites and also the Woodland Carbon Code project where they're live. So I don't think there's going to be many over in Surrey, but we've got a couple. Just head over to here. I believe this is a Woodland Carbon Code project. So again, nice bits of detail of what that's showing. Got the Langley Vale Phase 1, species, and the grant reference too. So they should be dotted about everywhere. And I believe these points are where different BNG sites are going forward, which I believe is sourced from is Natural England. Great. But a huge amount of information around the details there, which is brilliant. And it's great to see over here some heathland and shrub, all sorts being created there. Okay, that's running through the schemes. Again, I think for some of those, you'll need to be in a paid subscription to view that. Secondly, utilities. So this has really been enriched recently or across these previous months. I think the big ones to show these overhead lines, data layers. So we've added from the different private DNOs, apart from National Grid, which are all up here, but also Scottish Power and Scottish Southern Energy. partly we're working on those. It's in terms of just getting the data in from those providers there. But for all others, you can switch that on and actually see where these different overhead lines are on the map. So this chunky one here, which I believe is the higher voltage one in comparison to this yellow one here, which is 11 kilowatts. The orange being 33. And then also, well, this is from UK Power Networks, this one, 132 kilowatts. So that's a big one, which obviously is great. These are quite hidden features on your map, particularly if you go down to the aerial view. Something like that would be quite difficult to spot if you're just looking at it from this point of view. But with these lines added as the data layer, you can really see, okay, that looks like some kind of support there, which it is. I can focus on that really quickly using these data layers switched on here. I think beyond in that category, things like National Grid, but also if you're up in Scotland too, we've added these data sets down here around transmission of electricity up there too, but I won't jump there just yet. Great. And then I think lastly, to focus on the data layers before we get into some mapping, is the new data layers around water. So that's going right down to this category with our new additions of course, the flood zone maps, which are now actually retired. So it's an old data set, but luckily enough, we've managed to add in the flood maps for planning from the Environment Agency, which are essentially the same thing, giving this really updated and more clear, I think, instead of having two data layers, it's better to have one of different flood zones that are present across GB or England. Also, overland flows, which this is particularly one that could make you dizzy. But this is a brilliant data set in terms of showing where the probable overland flows of water are all across this area here in Landap. So these green ones, it looks like, I guess, arteries or a network, if you like. These greens being where it's a bit more flatter. These are all color coded basically on the incline of the land. So the slope that we're getting for these green areas around 6, I can't remember the ranges, but going right up to these orange, we've got a 5.1, and these reds, even darker reds, a much higher mean slope. So we know water flowing through these streams is going to be faster where it's more steep. And if I zoom out, you can really kind of make out how England is made up in terms of all our different national parks and our different hills and areas. So this must be getting up to, I think, the Cotswold. Oh no, still over here. Maybe if I go up to the Peak District, you can just see a lot more red here. So we know there are lots of hills, lots of water flowing through, and kind of following these channels where those areas are really dark. So a fascinating one, and particularly in conjunction with those flood zones, really nice detail in terms of what you're getting and those decisions that you're making around flood mitigation, different land use changes are really enriched by this data set here, which I'm a big fan of. And then lastly, before we move on, is this one around ponds. Ponding and errors in England again. Another Environment Agency data set. This is showing us where they're likely ponds currently across the land. Little pockets really of where they've popped up. So got offline ponding, online ponding, showing here in these different colours. I'm not entirely sure really what that exactly means, but I imagine it's different build-ups of water and where they're likely to be, probably based on LiDAR derived information there. So I think that's it. I'll pause just because I could go go through these for quite a while, but the majority of our data layers are free to use, so you can check out a lot of those. But if you're really interested in those planning applications, as well as the different agri-environment schemes that are available, please do get in touch if you're interested. We can talk about different subscription tiers that will enable access to that. Fab. So for the demo, we're not actually going to work down here in Surrey. I'm actually going to take everyone up to Scotland, and I've prepared a few different plans already with this farm boundary at the top. So we'll head up there, and maybe for this purpose, head into the aerial view. So I'm actually in the Scottish Lowlands at the minute, near Big R. And to get this boundary in, I imported that or copied it from Registers of Scotland. So this is quite a nice point just to give you all a sneak peek of what our intentions are around having a more of a clear split in land app between England, Scotland, and Wales. We've covered those three countries for a long time, but a big part of our development, particularly in the last 1 to 2 months, is actually coming into play is this part. So you can edit your sub-regions within land app. At the moment, I'm all 3 of GB, but I can switch those on and off and just select Scotland here. And what that will do is actually style the different data layers that I have access to. It should keep all these base maps apart from LiDAR at the minute. And then also, when I go to import my boundary, as I usually do when starting any workflow, this is slightly changed in terms of my options. So, of course, I can import a file and create from an existing plan. But also we've added, and we know the wording is wrong here, it's still a work in progress, and it shouldn't be Rural Payment Scotland, that's not what they're called. But our intention is just to make a more clear direction for users when they're importing these types of files. In this case, if you're familiar with our connection with the RPA in England, we've got a direct link with them, so I can just pop in my SBI number into Land App and it will send back that exact boundary of my farm and the field breakdown. But we don't have that just yet with rural payments in Scotland. So what we'll be asking there is any exported plan that you might have of your farm from that system, you can just import it directly into Land App through dragging and dropping. The other option, of course, is pick from Registers of Scotland. So if I switch that on, that data is live in Land App, which you can see here. So I've got all these different titles within Registers of Scotland, and I could just pick and choose any one that I want through this method here. And I'm just going to add to those two boundaries that I've already imported this one here too. Select next, and then looking at templates. So this is a good point to show a couple of different templates, and I'll be doing this through the demo to focusing on mainly an agri-environment climate scheme template. So it's an EECS shortened, and this is kind of the primary agri-environment scheme in Scotland, but we've also got there the whole farm plan biodiversity audit, which is another Scottish-based template that is very new to Land App, and we do offer that. So anyone looking to create those kind of plans, you can do that here. And those are the two main ones that have been added this year. So we'll run with the EECS template, EECS, and I've already created one previously. So let's just go EECS West there. And that will become my new working area for me. Now, what I did to create the nice field parcel breakdown from this method, all I did using this aerial view, which of course is a great way to just see how the land is broken down. I can just use those references to follow these parcels like so. I'm using the split function here just to follow the different lines that I can see. bearing in mind with knowledge of this land, I probably know exactly what these look like. And you can just follow that process like so. We'll split this one too. And just double click. I've got a nice breakdown eventually of field parcels that eventually looks like something like this. Okay, so treating this as our working area, I'll probably spend the next 10 minutes just going through a quick demo of focusing mainly around pond restoration and looking at different agroforestry or woodland options. And I'll be tying in a couple of the new tools that we've added, as well as two new downloads that are quite exciting to show you here. So treating this as my working area and starting my plan, what I can do is not only use data layers, as we just looked at, to create context around this area, and two others that I didn't mention that we've added recently are actually flood zones in Scotland too. So we've got flood extent coastal, but you probably won't see that here. Flood extent rivers. So this is the river flood zone data set from SEPA. So clicking on these blue areas, we've got map type hazard, high probability for these darker areas, and these lighter areas with a medium probability here too. So we can understand that this is a river flowing through here. We've high chance of flooding, particularly in this dip, what looks like a dip in the middle of our boundary. We can also use the surface water and small watercourses data layer from SEPA that gives a bit more of a spread in terms of where there might be flooding going on the land. These little dips you can see, like here, I think would be ideal for ponds. Well, that's what this information tells me, and I'm looking for that kind of thing and funding for it. So this has already given me good ideas of what changes could be made, and I have knowledge of this farm. This area here of permanent pasture is just always getting wet. I've got the town over here and up there. They're getting a bit annoyed about the amount of flooding that's happening. So this is a good insight. It's telling me something about this. And then I can also, just looking through this base map here, I've also got this other element within LandApp that I think a lot of people don't quite know about or use enough. It's called the data downloads that I can locate by clicking the new button at the top and data download. And there's a whole menu here of different things around agroforestry, looking for solar panels, ePlanner by UKCEH, so that's looking at different habitat creation opportunities. And then two new ones that have come in to LandApp this year, which is the vegetation data, which I'll show you in a moment, and then also this slope identifier. To do any of these, I'll be asked to select a plan. You can see I've already made one here. Let's go farm boundaries and just give it a name. And all I need to do is just hit download now, and then I'll receive an email to say that that's working and is running through. I've prepared these earlier for us. Firstly, looking at the slope identifier and just flicking that on. This is the result. So it's using LiDAR data mainly, and we're excited to say that this is covering Wales and Scotland now. It used to be just England, but if you're away in Scotland, you can use this. And we've changed the look of it really. So these much darker areas we see at the top are basically where the incline is really steep. I won't select that too much, but we've got a very high incline here of 11 degrees. In the darker areas, in the green, it's a bit less, with 2 to 3, and it just gives a really great picture of where the steep areas are, where are the dips, and gives additional kind of meaning and interpretation of those different flood zones that we saw earlier, which is great. So again, that kind of confirms. I imagine a lot of that water is streaming off at the top there, where it's really steep, down and accumulating into this section here. where those fields were. So great, I've got extra meaning from that. And then secondly, our vegetation download. So this will show me where all the different trees and maybe hedgerows are on my map that are above 2.5 meters. So again, covers England, Scotland, and Wales. In England, we're using Environment Agency's vegetation object model as a data set. But up in Scotland, I think Wales too, it's actually a data set from Meta, as in the Facebook Meta, who have a really good and quite accurate data set on these types of vegetation features. And again, we can go back to our aerial view and just validate how well that's done. And by the looks of it, it's pretty good in terms of populating that for me. So great. 3 elements that I've created quite quickly, although you didn't see me create those two. It was quick. With the data layers, these data downloads, and my boundary, I can infer I've got my highlighted area where the water is flowing down. I've got the flood zone area, and I've got a lack of, I'd say, vegetation in the area. And of course, we want to be thinking about, to mitigate flooding and runoff, we want to be thinking about trees. So what I would do there is think about those different options that AECS might provide for me. Duplicating that farm boundary main map, we can just create a new one of our AECS plan. We can look at those flood zones again. We know that this is a big flood area, lack of vegetation. We've got this line of trees here. Instantly, what I could think about doing is just popping in a new pond there. And I know with AECS, they've got some quite good options for ponds. So let's put a couple here. Finish. And then assign that using the AECS template. All those options that you get access to are within this. I can just search pond creation and restoration of wildlife. Let's assign those. If we want, give it a new styling like so. Clicking on any of these features, I've got the payment rates. I've also got the annual value shown to me too. So making that pond there will get me over £8,000. This one nearly 6. This one 2.5, which is great. So the idea of me showing you this is compiling all that data and these new features. You can make quick decisions and view what's possible with these templates around what changes you can make and how you can utilize, and of course, manage your land in different ways that will benefit you. I am conscious of time. I want to really just whiz through quickly a couple of the new drawing tools and particularly focus on agroforestry. So say I've decided I'm working with someone, they advising me, great, agroforestry is the option for you. I'm interested into it, but how do I plan that properly? Whilst we do have an agroforestry populator, that's quite, say, rigid to different agri-environment schemes. Down in England, I could make my own plan here. So clicking on any of these and heading to the draw function. A new drawing tool is these grids. So I can now, if I want to, add grids to my map. So it's quite an easy one. You can't edit it in a way that you'd add a polygon or area. You'd add it through this way or edit it through this way. So I've got my length here. Let's just give it 20 meters, maybe a bit less, 15. And I can choose the number of rows I want to. So if I was calculating what the meters were that I require for this grid, I can kind of edit that in this way. So with a side length of 15 meters, that's the side there between each grid. And then also the number of rows I'd want to times 15 by 8, which quick maths I won't try and do on a Friday morning, but you get the gist. You can quickly create the right aspects, the lengths of these different grids. Just going to rotate that And then from there, I'll use that information to start plotting where I want my different trees. So using the points with a nice snap to line, I can just add those like so. I think like the plan panel, this is a really good one that's quite simple, wasn't too difficult to add, but will have quite a lot of impact in terms of your mapping. So it could be agroforestry, could be different buildings, and you're planning polytunnels or a new shed or a new house. You can add these through this grid function really neatly and tidy. So from that point, I probably want to add trees, small scale tree planting, shrubs, like so. If I wanted to, I can just delete that grid, put a really nice, neat layout of where my trees are going to be. Okay, just as we've hit the quarter two mark, I'll stop the demo there and just quickly head back to our slides just to say we publish these product updates on our website every month. We do a monthly roundup. These are all also emailed to our users. But if you wanted just to go back to any of those features that I've shown you today and pick up on any of them or ones that I didn't show you, you can just go through the product updates on our website, and we'll continue to do that into the future. Okay, I think we can move on to the Q&A, which Rosie's been helping me with. Just to flag this QR code on your screen here, if you do want to book a call with either me or Rosie, could be 15 minutes to an hour, just to talk about any of those functions in a bit more detail, please do feel welcome to do so. Just need to scan that using your phone, and we can book a call in soon enough. Okay, looking at questions, it looks like there has been some through. Maybe I'll take the first one and we could bounce between each other, Rosie, perhaps. So go from the top from Martin Steer. It's been mentioned before, but any update on hardware that would link with mobile app to improve accuracy? Example, we've designed an NFM project to see what's happened there around Seven Rivers Trash accurately. Blue dot. Sorry, I'm mumbling there, but trying to read the whole thing. I think what you're trying to get out there, Martin, we have had conversation about that. Is not only the GPS through the mobile app, but also I think around the different data you could integrate with it, from photos to surveys. In terms of the GPS, we've kind of concluded that the GPS will be as good on the mobile app as good it is on your phone. So as long as the phone's GPS is going well, the mobile app should too. And then other data sets that we want to bring in, I think we're definitely interested in habitat surveys. So looking at UK Habs field key as well as condition score or condition assessment surveys, as well as you've already got soil surveys in there, at different points. But how bespoke for different tasks it can be, I think we need to work out. So yeah, thanks for sending in that comment, and I'll definitely review that in a bit more detail after the call. Rosie, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, and I think also, Martin, to add to that, so if because you can link hardware devices, or should be able to link it to Land App Mobile. We haven't confirmed which ones yet. So if anyone's on this call that has been able to link another hardware device to it and it's worked, then please let us know so then we can let other clients know as well. Great. So in terms of next question from Anonymous, is the ability to import a CSV file for point data coming to Land App soon? Yes, so this is one of our most heavily requested features, and is currently being designed at the moment. So that should be released hopefully in the first quarter next year. Will,
Nice.
do you want to answer the
Yeah,
next one from
I'll
Anonymous?
answer James Ramsky Garner's first question around how often the aerial imagery layer is updated. So as mentioned, that provider updates on 2 year cycles. So what I showed in the demo should be photographs taken from 2023 to 24. Next year, we should get the 25, 26 photographs uploaded. There might be disparities, and yeah, I have to admit I've found some. But yeah, th seeing things that definitely were older than 2 years, but yeah, I would treat it as 2 year cycles. But I guess if you ever see things you're in that base map that you spot, do let us know if it's accurate for you. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. Um,
I think it also depends on your location. So,
right.
because they can't take imagery, for the whole of the UK all at once. So, I think depending on the location where you are, it will vary. But I understand that Get Mapping is 2023.
Okay. And I think that covers Sam's question as well of would you look into updating aerial imagery map more often? Yeah, I guess that is determined by what provider we use. At the moment, it's Get Mapping, but Google, for instance, are probably the best out there. But we just have to weigh up costs basically, because there are licenses associated with those. Um, but yeah, I think if it's a big need for you, do make that clear for us. And if you're using that as kind of your default base map, that's good for us to understand, just to factor in those um, different aspects from you into our decisions as well. Okay. Do you want to cover the one around transferring ownership, Rosie?
Yes. Yeah. So from Anonymous, are we going to be able to transfer the ownership of maps soon? Yes, this is coming very soon. Again, it's in designs at the moment, and we're hoping the first quarter of next year that will be released. So at the moment, the workaround is that if you want to get plans from a particular map and put them onto your own map, then you need to export the plans first and then re-import them into a new map. But soon you'll have the ability to transfer ownership of one map from one person to another, which will just make that a little bit easier for everyone.
Great. That will be a great feature once it's in. Um, nice. Then a comment from Anthony. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, the printing function could be slicker. Yes, we've noticed it could take certainly a while for prints to load once you've hit that preview or buy button. Um, I believe we tried to make that quicker quite recently, but yeah, it might be still a wee bit slow. Um, we'll work on that. I will definitely tell our product team because um, that was a recent feature that they looked at. So um,
Yeah, and Anthony was commenting on how if you want to kind of go back to the map, it's just not quite as slick as using like other features on Land app. So yeah, the print function is something that we're working on improving, but yeah, we'll speak to the product team about your
yeah,
experience, Anthony.
just, just to build on that, I see there's another question from James around a quality of life change would be amazing is when you are editing a legend. The print function is a button that turns all items off. We could go, yeah, that's a good suggestion actually, which I hadn't thought of. So for that comment around, yeah, switching all off on print legend items, we will definitely take to product team. Thank you.
Shall I explain how print credits works? OS prints credits. So someone's asked, please explain how OS credits work. So Ordnance Survey credits work when you're on the three Ordnance Survey base maps. and it's when you're viewing premium tiles. So that's when you're zoomed in to zoom level 10 or more, and you'll have some credits at the bottom of your map, which Will's just showing now. Actually, you're on our land app demo account, so you won't have any credits, Will. But yeah, at the bottom of your Ordnance Survey base map, you'll have some credits, and you can see there in yellow. It's now gone white. So yeah, it's zoom level 10 at the moment, which is premium. So when you're at premium levels, you're using Ordnance Survey credits. So you'll start to see your number of credits diminish as you zoom in and out and scroll around the screen. I understand that the way Ordnance Survey pricing works is that if you have more urban features within the tile you're viewing, then it's more expensive than if you're in the middle of nowhere on a moorland area, for example. So yeah, you can buy more credits when you run out. Your base map will go blank when you've completely run out of credits, and then you'll just need to purchase more from the bottom of the map to access that data again.
Great. Yeah, just to um, build on that or summarize it, you'll see that the data set changes as I'm zooming in and out. So I'm on free at the moment, which is Ordnance Survey open data. But if I zoom in, you see the data set changes slightly and becomes more detailed. And what you're actually seeing is the Ordnance Survey MasterMap data, which is their kind of flagship license product, and it's very good. Um, and as Rosie said, the more I move, the more I zoom in, the more tiles I'm viewing, and therefore credits using. Ordnance Survey credits are just one way of buying those different tiles that you view. We can offer as well your own Ordnance Survey Maps API key that would basically be linked to your account. In effect, you wouldn't have to view these or pay for them via credits and having to keep topping them up. You just pay a monthly invoice for the kind of sliding scale amount of usage that you use in 1 month. Um, so I would say it really depends how often you're using it and where you're using it in order to make a decision of whether to go credits or Ordnance Survey Maps API key. But happy to have a follow-up conversation around that if you are a really regular user of this kind of data, because using the Maps API key ends up much cheaper if you're doing it regularly. Um,
So we've got a few more questions, Will, but just conscious of time, so might have to be quick on the answers with the next ones. But one question from Graham. Graham, you've used a few acronyms, so I'm hoping I'm getting these right. But so you've asked for land spreading deployments. Natural Resources Wales require confirmation of county parish holding numbers. Is it possible to add this feature? So what I would say, Graham, is you can add bespoke attributes. So yeah, if you've got kind of an ownership boundary in different parcels, you can add bespoke attributes into there. Perhaps I can email you afterwards if you're unsure how to do that. But yeah, then you would be able to add in your county parish holding numbers. And then you've also asked about the slope gradients. So Will showed that earlier. You can access the slope layer by going to the data downloads, which is on the standard subscription. So yeah, Will, is that in for Wales already now? I know it's
yeah,
either just been released or just, yeah, okay.
yeah, that's Wales and parts of Scotland now. So that uses LiDAR data. And the reason why I say parts of Scotland is because we don't have the full Scotland LiDAR data set. But yeah, try it out in Wales. It's a good to see a question around that. I think we have time for one more question. Where can I find about the data source and the data upload frequency of the data layers? So very quickly, if I show it, if I turn on any, let's find a Scotland one. If I turn on any of these data layers and click on it, you'll see this right hand box pops up, and right at the bottom, you're able to see the source. So I can just click on that and find the data set. How often these are updated? We have something called a crawler in LandApp that basically checks every week all of these data layers, checking are they up to date, are there any bugs, and then accordingly edits it and updates it when it needs to. So it's quite an automatic function there. But every week, essentially, um, is when they're updated in Land App. There'll be varying dates when they'll be updated by the source. Um, Hopefully that answers your question. I think we'll pause there. And just to say, we'll do our best to answer all the questions that were left over. But just to say thank you all very much for joining. It's again great to get feedback, great to show you this, and more is coming in LandApp as we speak and further ahead. So hope to see you again. And yeah, do book in a call with us and get in touch.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.